Hello everyone, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mart Witness 1. This is Thursday, November 13th, 2020. And a good portion of people on the internet right now are waiting to see what the fate is going to be of Field McConnell. Field McConnell awaits his answer to whether or not he is going to the state of Florida. Now, I am pretty certain that the judge is going to rule in favor of the state of Florida, and Field McConnell is going on an extended vacation, about 5 or 6 years. But he never can be 100% certain. Especially here in Florida. Now, you got to remember, we had Casey Anthony, we had Trayvon Martin, whose cases were acquittals. One was a stand your ground law, the other was the mysterious death of a young child. So nothing is certain. We mustn't forget O.J. Simpson and other famous cases where we thought that people were going to go to jail and then they wound up getting acquitted, mainly because of jury nullification. So it's out there. You know, that slim chance that Field McConnell may find himself a free man today. But bear this in mind. If, by some miracle, Field McConnell becomes a free man today, it's not the end of his troubles. Field McConnell is under federal investigation because of what happened with Cynthia Abzug. Now, there's rumors flying around that Cynthia is cooperating with investigators in going over the details of what happened with Field McConnell, Timothy Charles Holmseth, Mr. Hallett, Mr. Pendergrass, Ms. Dunklin, and others who may find themselves in the same boat as Field McConnell. I haven't heard too much about Cynthia's case lately, about what direction it's going in. Apparently, there was an attorney that appeared on her behalf so she didn't have to be in court on the early part of her proceedings up in Montana. At some point, however, she is going to have to appear in court, and things will go on from there. But I also understand that someone close to the Abzug matter is going to be making some kind of statement, some kind of press release, as it were, in support of Cynthia Abzug. I'm waiting to see when and how this is going to take place and exactly what the contents are. And if it comes to me in time, I will include it either in this bulletin or I may make a brief one depending on my schedule as I go forward today. And the same holds true of the decision of Field McConnell. I will put that in the video at some point. I may make a break-in comment where I just comment about it and then I insert it in here, probably at this point, so that everybody knows the decision there. Now, I'm going to assume at this point that Field McConnell will have found that he's on his way to Florida. And I will discuss tomorrow what happens if this is the case. There's no point in discussing it now because if by some miracle he will have bitten the bullet and he is now free, the whole point of any discussion going forward would be moot. And Friday's a better venue because I will be live and we will discuss either his going to Florida or what led to the judge deciding in his favor. And at that point, then we can have a sound discussion about what happens next. Now, moving on to Sarah Dunklin. Now, there's been some interesting developments with her case, things that I didn't know that I come to find out through banging around a little bit. And that is that her companion through all this and her alleged boyfriend is not living with her. He is in fact rented a month-to-month apartment in a nearby town. So it begs the question, what kind of a relationship do these two individuals have? Is there a physical relationship or not? Or is this just some guy that latched on to Sarah Dunklin for whatever reason to help her with this quote-unquote cause? In other words, is he paid help? Is he there as a role as a bodyguard and paid companion for Sarah Dunklin? Is he somehow being paid by the Children's Crusade and or the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force to be with Ms. Dunklin for whatever reason? It's hard to say. It's hard to know what's going on with this bunch. But it just is rather interesting that this guy is keeping his distance, so to speak. You know, as much as there was talks of a hot and heavy romance going on here, it may not be so hot and heavy if the guy has to find his own digs in a nearby town. Interesting piece of trivia I found out as well in my research, and that is that Sarah Dunklin and her ex-husband work for the same company. Different divisions within the company, but they work for the same company. Now you can imagine the two of these people bumping into each other during the course of a day's work. It's probably not likely based on their individual occupations, but it makes for a kind of a funny situation in this speculation that goes on. And another thing to wonder about too is who supports who within this company. I mean, there's going to be people, they may be on Sarah's side for any number of reasons, and then people that are going to be on the husband's side for various reasons. So it makes for interesting inter-office gossip within a company to know that you got two opponents, and one of them in a high-profile manner, duking it out, and they work in the same company. Certainly provides entertainment for those that work there and in the community as a whole. Now, word is beginning to spread among the Arkansas Republican Party of what's going on with Ms. Dunklin. And there's all indications that that is creating quite a stir. That the last thing people in Arkansas need right now is a controversy of this nature, where one of the daughters, or the daughter of one of the primary candidates for Republican Senate, is wrapped up in some conspiracy theory organization that goes around fishing for women who have problems with CPS, and they're doing it for money. So that makes for interesting pieces of gossip as this gets spread around. People within the local community are starting to hear about this. And now that this case is a matter of public record, more people are hearing about it. Now, poor Miss Dunklin tried to get this case private. She did not want it public. She wanted a closed hearing. Judge turned her down. The hearing is going to be open to the public. If you feel like driving up there to that county court, you can sit in it and all this. So Sarah Dunklin is finding out there's a price to be paid for getting involved with conspiracy theorists. And by extension, Miss Dunklin is a victim of Timothy Charles Homestead, just the same as Phil McConnell is a victim of Timothy Charles Homestead, because she chose to go down that same path. And now she's going to pay the price. A lot of other people are going to pay the price before the dust settles on all this, because they just couldn't mind their own business. They just couldn't keep their trap shut. They had to get involved in Timothy Homestead's little fantasy. And they're all suffering, either in jail, getting ready to go to jail, fighting for custody of their children, all while Timothy Homestead sits comfortably on a couch watching TV and eating popcorn or whatever else he is being fed. Tim Homestead is laughing all the way to the bank. Tim Homestead doesn't care about Sarah Dunklin. Tim Homestead doesn't care about Phil McConnell. Tim Homestead only cares about Tim Homestead. All the rest of these people can go to hell as far as he's concerned. You know, Tim Homestead is the important guy here. He's the main man. He's the one with all the answers. He doesn't need all these other people. He could care less. He's writing about conspiracy theories again. Yes, he will mention Phil from time to time because he has to. Because he has to retain the McConnell followers. It's a pretty strong group. These people are fairly active. They call the sheriff's department almost daily, wanting Phil McConnell out. At one time, there was one of these automatic notification things went off, so that anybody who signs up for it would know what the status of Phil McConnell was. And there was an out of custody notification that went out. And everybody thought, oh my God, Phil is free. He won. No, he didn't. Because people don't understand how things work. What had happened apparently is that the notification went out to those that had signed up that Phil McConnell was out of custody from the sheriff's department. Only, however, long enough for him to go over to the courthouse and make his appearance. And then when he came back, he was back in custody again. So for the space of about an hour or so, everybody thought that Phil McConnell was a free man, because they jumped the gun, so to speak. But as I speak, Phil McConnell is in jail, waiting his fate, waiting that decision about whether or not he's coming to Florida. And Miss Dunklin is going to find out November 26th what the next step in her little process is going to be. Is she going to lose her children? Is she going to possibly get her children back under the condition that she has to sever all ties with this organization and prove to the court that she isn't going to go around plotting kidnappings and coming up with fake paperwork so that these mothers can evade justice? Is she perhaps going to cooperate with the authorities and go against Cynthia Abzug and perhaps come up with a story that'll bury Cynthia Abzug and assure her that she's going to lose her children? You know, that's a possibility I don't think anybody's thought of. that people are going to start turning against Cynthia. And this is a reason. These people are facing lengthy jail times. They're going to be looking for ways to get out of their situation. And so they may decide to testify against Cynthia Abzug. They may go and write ex partes or whatever to the court and say, hey, the things they say about Cynthia are true. She does have this disorder. That's why we stopped helping her. We found out that she had all those problems and we backed out. Or maybe they'll say, hey, when we heard that Cynthia Abzug was talking about doing this kidnapping stuff, we told her she needs to get out of here and go away. See, nobody has thought about that one yet. I've been waiting for that shoe to drop, and it hasn't dropped. But it just might as these investigations intensify. For the people who got themselves in this situation with Cynthia Abzug are going to be looking for a way out of it. They're going to look for a way to mitigate the problem. I mean, there may be some detrimental effects. People may be put on probation, may be fined, but they may escape jail time if they cooperate with authorities against Cynthia Abzug. I don't think Cynthia Abzug has thought about that. I don't think anybody supporting Cynthia Abzug has thought about that. That people might be working in secret with the authorities to cooperate in testimony against Cynthia Abzug in order to get them out of their situations. Now, it's pretty obvious that Cynthia Abzug is cooperating with authorities. So now we're going to have this weird scenario where we've got people turning state's evidence against each other. And it's going to be up to the investigators to sort through this mess and determine who is telling the truth and who is not. And this is where evidence is going to come in. You know, it depends on who has the best evidence to best defend their statements. Does Cynthia Abzug have evidence that could incriminate these people? The fake passport, correspondence, emails, recorded telephone calls? Or do members of the pedophile Pentagon Task Force and the Children's Crusade have emails, direct messages, phone calls, and so forth to defend themselves? So we have all this to look forward to, because sooner or later this is all going to come out. The investigators are going to sort through this mess, and they're going to figure out exactly what happened, who was responsible, and how. And then they're going to make a decision as to what they're going to do with these people. Because in the center of this vast conspiracy circle are children. And the fate of those children is going to depend on what the government does. Are they going to lean towards Cynthia Abzug, or are they going to lean towards this conspiracy group who will claim that they got duped into helping Cynthia Abzug? So that's going to be an interesting thing to explore as we go down this strange road of conspiracy theorists. Now, I would suspect that Sarah Dunklin is going to use this to defend herself, to say she was only trying to help this poor woman get her child back, only to realize that this person really did have Munchausen, and she made all kinds of crazy statements. And Sarah would say, well, I just cut loose of this. Now, I may have gotten a little over enthusiastic, A, B, C, and D, but I really had the best of intentions. And this will be a kick in the face to Cynthia Abzug, if this turns out to be the case, that Cynthia Abzug is going to be thrown to the wolves. Because in the end, this is all about self-preservation. People are going to preserve their self-interest first before they worry about somebody else. They're not going to be loyal to Cynthia. They're going to be loyal to themselves. And so I can imagine the phone calls, the meetings, the discussions that are going on right now to figure out how much damage that they can do to Cynthia to get themselves out of this hole. And there's probably going to be leaks and rumors and everything else that Cynthia really does have Munchausen's by proxy. And they're going to start coming out with evidence. They're going to leak telephone calls. They're going to leak correspondences, direct messages, you name it. And Cynthia is going to find herself in a worse situation than she thought was going to happen after she got caught. Because I don't think she realizes just how selfish these people are. That when they reach a point where they see that they're on a sinking ship, they're going to head for the lifeboats. And that lifeboat is immunity from prosecution, state's evidence, arguing that they were themselves misled by a crazy woman. So while Cynthia Abzug is turning state's evidence, attempting to get immunity from prosecution, giving her side of the story, her evidence, her friends have turned into enemies and are going to do the same thing to her. The one glimmer of hope that comes out of all this is by this turn of events, people are going to realize that the Children's Crusade and other organizations like the Children's Crusade are not viable alternatives to fighting for their position. They're fighting to get your children back and so on. That this is not a good way to go. That these so-called advocacy groups are not that. They're just fronts to get money. Fronts that perhaps are for human trafficking, as was stated in the deposition that the father of Sarah Dunklin's daughter put in his statement, that the Children's Crusade is a front for human trafficking, that for some yet unknown reason they wanted to get their hands on these children. And they wanted to get their hands on the mothers of the children. Not the fathers, the mothers. Because it's only the mothers these groups fight for. I don't think I've heard a story yet about a father getting involved with the Children's Crusade or the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force to get their children back. It's always women. And this is kind of a strange twist, because one of the reasons that Tim Holmseth went on this rampage is because he was involved in a custody fight for his children by the mother of his child. And he did exactly what the father of Sarah Dunklin's child did. He went to court, fought it, fought hard. Compromise was met, joint custody. Tim had to take down a poster. Tim had to do this. Tim had to jump through hoops to have the right to be with his son. So that's what's on the back of Tim Holmseth's mind when he got involved in all this, is that he had a bad experience with his wife. So, but, see, the Children's Crusade, Northwest Liberty News, and all these other people help women. Not men, women. Now imagine, if you will, if all this battle was going on, and it was the wife of Timothy Charles Holmseth that approached the Children's Crusade and all these other advocacy groups to help them get the child away from Tim. What if Tim's wife had gotten to these people first before Tim came along? Now, wouldn't that have been an interesting alternative to study? That the only reason Tim got the support of this group is because he got to him first. His wife went through the system. She fought the system. She got satisfaction because she recognized that for whatever, better for worse, that the boy needs to see his father. And so there was a compromise. Tim wasn't satisfied with that compromise, but there was a compromise nonetheless. And Tim sought retribution against women in general because of what happened with him and his wife, or with the mother of his child. Tim has had children with women, but never bothered to marry them. So, the only reason Tim got what he wanted is because he recognized that if he joined the philosophy of this group, became a sovereign citizen, and argued these alternative legal things, and came out in favor of Trump, then he could do whatever he damn well pleased. He could come up with some of the most outrageous conspiracy theories on the planet, and people would soak it up. And that's exactly what's happened. He has his ardent supporters. Bill McConnell has his. And Sarah Dunklin has hers. And Cynthia Absug has hers. So everybody's got their little support groups. But now, we're in a situation where these support groups are starting to go to war with each other because of self-preservation. You know, Cynthia Absug is facing some fairly serious charges. You know, conspiracy to commit armed kidnapping. Conspiracy to transport a child across state lines. Well, pretty serious charges. And that's on top of the accusations that she has this Munchausen's problem, and that there's allegedly a lot of evidence to support these accusations. And then you have this group that Cynthia thought was coming to her aid, who broke any number of laws and are also facing the same charges that Cynthia faces. So both of the halves of this little story are going to be at war with each other to keep their asses out of jail, to preserve whatever remnants of their life they have left. You know, Cynthia's going to want her children back. That has not changed. And these other people no longer care about Cynthia. They care about their own ass. They want to get the hell out of this mess. And so, Cynthia's going to find herself with some unexpected enemies. Her former allies are going to turn against her. They're going to say, shit, man, this woman isn't worth this. I'm not going to jail for 5, 10, 20 years for this woman. I'm going to turn to state's evidence. I'm going to testify against her. I'm going to turn over all these letters and phone calls that she made to us. We'll turn over the thing where she called Phil McConnell and sent the child's medical information to a complete stranger. She didn't know Phil McConnell, and she sent all this medical history to Phil McConnell in violation of the HIPAA. She violated the child's privacy by sending all this information. This is not going to look good for Cynthia. You know, again, you can argue that Cynthia was simply getting her story out there, that she wanted people to know that she feared for her child being in the custody of these strange people, these foster people. Yeah. So, of course, Cynthia is going to let the people know what the true story is in her mind. She's going to let people know that this is my side of the story. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing for my child. And so she's going to put this stuff out to Phil McConnell. You know, she could say that, well, I had hoped Phil McConnell wasn't going to splatter it all over the internet, that he would look at it and say, you know, protect the identity of the child. But we all know what happened. We saw the webcast. We saw it before it was hidden from the public. So we know it's out there. So Cynthia, poor Cynthia. What a tangled web we weave. And that's what's happened. She's got herself in an even bigger mess than she was in before. How is this going to turn out? Who knows? Depends on how valuable she is to authorities, how convincing she is to authorities. And the same holds true of those who participated in this mess. Joseph, will he stand by Cynthia's side? Or when the rubber meets the road and he's sitting across the table from a highly skilled and trained interrogator, having to explain his part in all this, will he abandon Cynthia? He hasn't known Cynthia that long. He's probably lost out on his medical career because of all this. He's paid a heavy price. And if he feels that he's going to face prison time over his actions with Cynthia, is it going to be worth him to stay by her side? Apparently there's nothing romantic going on between these two. It's always a possibility, but it doesn't seem that way. He's just a believer in the cause, so to speak. But is that belief going to extend to risking going to jail by standing by Cynthia? Is he going to be another Phil McConnell, where he's willing to spend 3-4 months in jail in order to defend his beliefs? Or is he going to cave in and say, look, what do you want to know? What can I do to get out of this mess? What can I do to get immunity from prosecution? So on and so forth. And that'll be a domino to fall. And all these other people, when they start measuring up what they have to lose by keeping on with this stance in favor of Cynthia, defending Cynthia, they come first before anybody else. They say, look, this is my ass here. This is my job, my future. You know, my spouse could divorce me over this. I'm going to lose custody of my child because I participated in this. I'm not going to defend this woman. I'm going to find a way to get my ass out of this situation. So they're going to call up Colorado and say, guess what? I got something for you. You give me immunity from prosecution and you give me some kind of deal. I'm going to spill the beans here. I'm going to give you the true story. And so Cynthia Adsug is giving her true story to all these people, about all these people. They're going to be doing the same thing to her. And the investigators are going to reap the rewards. They're going to have mountains of evidence from both sides. And they're going to sit down and they're going to figure out who's best to go with, who's the best side here. You know, how are we going to reap the most out of all this? Do we give somebody a break here? Or do we just haul them all off to jail and let the courts sort it out? Because you just don't call up the cops and say, hey, I got information. If you give me a break, you know, I'll give you this information. Cops are going to say, well, let's see what the information is first before we decide to offer you immunity. I mean, we're just not going to say, okay, give us the information, we'll give you a break. That ain't going to happen. There's a bit of negotiation that goes on. And part of that negotiation is assessing just how valuable this information is. And the one thing that happens, because you're giving out all this information, is you're waiving your Miranda rights. You're waiving your right to remain silent. You're waiving your right to an attorney. You're waiving all kinds of stuff. by going forward and telling the authorities your story. And they'll make you sign a little piece of paper that says, I waive my Miranda. And then that's when the games begin. That's probably what's going on right now. Cynthia's probably spilling the beans to investigators. She's making statements, testifying, writing out these. They give you a little piece of paper with lines on it and the header on it. Usually the law enforcement agency, like the sheriff's department that's investigating this case, little line paper, and at the bottom it says, I hereby swear and affirm that the above statement is true, so on and so forth. And on those little lines of paper, the story's going to be told. And that story's going to be turned over to a prosecutor, and the prosecutor's going to decide whether or not to go forward with the case. And the investigators are going to take that statement, and they're going to decide whether or not they're going to go after all these other people. And they're going to decide if they're going to go after these people as a group or as individuals. They're going to say, well, this person's the ringleader, so we'll get this one, let these other people go. They were just in this for the ride. Since they've decided to cooperate, we're going to let them off the hook. We're going to get the mastermind. Because in the end, that's who they want. They want whoever's behind the brilliant idea to have this woman go gallivanting all over the United States, getting all this fake paperwork, allegedly getting a weapon, and plotting this armed kidnapping. They're going to want to get to the bottom of this. They're going to want to get to the people most responsible for what happened, and they're going to want to nail their ass to the cross. And right now, the weakest link in the chain is sitting in the Pierce County Jail. The weakest link in the chain is looking forward to the prospect that he's going to wind up in Florida. That he's going to get prosecuted. That he's going to come face to face with a woman who he called to be executed. A woman that is mad at him right now. There's the old expression, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. There's a variation of this little statement, parable, whatever you want to call it, and that is, hell hath no fury like a female lawyer scorned. Because his enemy has the courts behind her. She knows the system. She knows how to run things. And as a victim, she has additional power. And so there's a lot at stake for Phil McConnell. That's why he wants to avoid Florida, because he knows he gets to Florida, he's doomed. There's people that get on, leave comments that say, oh, the prosecutors will look at this and say, yeah, it's not worth it. This is some old fart with a big mouth. He's already been in jail for 5-6 months. We're just going to let him go. You're going to have this lawyer that's mad. Because this guy threatened her life, threatened her family, threatened her means of making a living, her prestige, her reputation. This guy did all that. And she wants payback. She knows people in places. She knows how to push the buttons needed to get things going. As a victim, she can press for it. She can use local advocacy groups that help women who are victims of this kind of thing, domestic violence groups, all kinds of groups that lobby for justice for women in the position of this lawyer. And so Phil is going to have a formidable group of people that are after him when he gets down here. He's not going to have to worry about people wanting to kill him. That's a fantasy. He's going to be in the same prison as the Parkland shooter is in. And there's a lot of people in South Florida that would love to do vigilante justice against the guy that killed all these high school students. So Phil can thank his lucky stars in a way that it's that institution he's going to. It may not be your local country club, but at least he'll be alive. I think by the time the dust settles on everything with Phil McConnell, he's going to wish he was dead. Because he's going to go through the kind of hell that some street-level drug addict goes through. He's going to be in one of the worst institutions in the state of Florida. A place where people definitely don't want to go if they get incarcerated. They would rather go anywhere else but the Broward County Jail. It's a prison that looks like a prison. You can look at the building and know it's a prison. And when you get inside, you know that you're an animal in a cage. That you're nothing but a number. You're going to have to memorize your number. You won't be Phil McConnell anymore. You'll be a 6 or 8 digit number that is printed on your orange uniform. An orange uniform, by the way, that you're going to have to pay for. So that's a funny thing about prisons. You don't go to prison for free. You subsidize yourself. Now, most of the cost is borne by the taxpayers, of course, because of how much money it costs to keep a prisoner in prison. But there's things that you pay for. You pay for your uniform. You're going to pay for that burlap sheet you're going to be sleeping under. You're going to be paying for that 6 by 8 foot room that you're in, that you're sharing with another inmate for your half of the bunk bed. It's all money comes out. You know, at the end of your stay, however long it is, even if you get acquitted, you're going to be handed a bill. And if you happen to bring money with you, say Phil McConnell goes down there with a couple $100 in cash and maybe his people donate it to him, they're going to take that money. All your property. Everything. You can't wear a thing in prison. They don't even take your wedding ring if you have one. It all goes. Goes in a little plastic bag. The money is gone forever. You don't get your cash back. When you're released, either through acquittal or through serving your sentence, you don't get cash. You get a little debit card. And you don't get a return bus ticket or plane ticket to your home state, in this case, Wisconsin. You're escorted to the front gate, given your little plastic bag that you signed for. They wave goodbye, or then anyway, they just turn their backs and close the door, and you're standing there at the main entrance to this prison wondering what the hell I'm going to do now. I got to get home. And so hopefully there's somebody in Wisconsin that has a plan to get you home after 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And they got the money to do it, because Florida's not paying for you to go back to Wisconsin. They want nothing more to do with you. You're out of the system. Bye. You know, you better find yourself a YouTube channel and a GoFundMe and a Patreon and PayPal and all that, and start raising money to come back to Orlando or come back to Wisconsin. Because the state of Florida is not paying to send you home. The state of Florida is not, or the state of Wisconsin is not paying to bring you back. Nobody's going to pay a convict to come back. This is why we have a return to prison problem. I'm not going to pronounce that long word. Because they've had enough of this inmate. They got other things to do. They got other inmates to take care of. So once you're out, you're out. You better have a way to get home. You better make plans. Better make sure that your bondsman was paid. You know, there's all kinds of little things that Field needs to worry about if he goes to Florida. This is what's weighing on him right now while he awaits this decision by the judge. While we all wait for the decision by the judge. Because Phil McConnell's going to have a rough time if he comes to Florida. But, you know, and this is before, during, and after the Florida trip. If for some reason he's released today, and he's a free man, he goes back to his McMansion, starts with his big mouth, Pierce County Sheriff may be waiting for him with another arrest warrant. Because see, something people forgot about, but that law enforcement has not forgotten about, is that Phil McConnell threatened a bank officer. He made essentially a death threat. That's a crime. It's a felony. It's what got him thrown in jail, waiting extradition to Florida. So when word gets out, if Phil McConnell's a free man, that bank officer is going to call up the prosecutor and say, okay, what about me? This guy threatened my life. You know, he sat in the Pierce County jail for 3 months because of that. What about me? And they say, well, you're going to file a complaint? You go, yeah, I already filed one. It's all right. So they're going to dig out their little paperwork. Prosecutor, state attorney, whoever the hell it is. Going to square out a complaint, and they're going to put Bill McConnell right back in jail again. So this whole thing will start all over again. Will Phil McConnell get a lawyer this time? Who knows? He ain't got one yet. This guy is hours away, or he may have even learned it by now, because I'm on the road. I have no contact with Pierce County. Now, a decision's going to be made whether or not he goes to Florida. And once we get this little riddle worked out, off he goes. Or though, if he stays. But no matter what happens with Florida, you know, he could go down to Florida, get acquitted, go down to Florida, get time served, go down to Florida. All kinds of stuff could happen. But there's that threat against the bank officer staring him in the face. And there's other criminal actions staring him in the face. So Phil McConnell's troubles have not ended. Phil McConnell's story is only beginning. Phil McConnell has got an interesting time ahead. Now, while we're on the subject of Phil McConnell, there's a story that came out to explain why Phil McConnell hasn't been on the phone. And there were 3 different stories. Story number 1 is that he ran out of commissary money again. See, Phil McConnell has to pay for all those telephone calls. And when you're calling daily, half hour, 45 minutes at a time, those calls are not cheap because they're metered calls. So he may have run out of money. That might be reason number 1. Reason number 2 that somebody came out with is that Phil McConnell is on lockdown, that he misbehaved again. I have not been able to confirm that. As far as I know from a number of sources, is that he is not on lockdown. And that leads us to number 3. That Phil McConnell had his phone privileges revoked again. Now, this story makes the most sense because if you go back and listen to the last 3 days of his phone calls before they were suspended, you will see that Phil McConnell was going down the same path that got his phone privileges revoked the last time. He was violating the court order against him that got him in jail in the first place. And he was also making what could be construed as threatening remarks in regards to officers of the court there in Wisconsin. So Phil McConnell was shooting his big mouth off again. And he got people pissed off, and they said, well, let's yank his phone again. And that's what happened. And Phil McConnell has no phone privileges at the moment. He can only talk to specific people about specific subjects. He can't be talking in code like he's been known to do. So Phil McConnell is basically reading his little Bible and waiting and waiting and waiting. And so today, we will have learned by the time this recording hits the internet what happened to Mr. McConnell. And as for the other people, they're probably scrambling around trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do. The Sarah camp is going to do what they're going to do. The Cynthia camp is going to do what they're going to do. Everybody's got their plans in the works. They're trying to figure it out. Okay. So anyway. So where does this leave us here in the outskirts waiting? Well, we make our speculations, we make our guesses, we come up with our own little theories. You know, it's kind of like, it reminds me of people that talk about football games. They talk about way people do things in football games and in other sports, the strategies they use, the reputation of the team, try and come up with odds as to who is going to win. And it helps pass the time. Helps try to figure out just what the hell's going to come out of all this. And that's what I do. I come up with my little theories based on my experiences. And I'm either right or I'm wrong. Half right, half wrong. That's true of all of us. So when somebody comes, when somebody says, look, you're wrong about this, this is what's going to happen, or you're right about this. In the end, it's just my guess. Because the only people that know what's going to happen are the people in the power to make it happen. The judges, the cops, the prosecutors, the lawyers, all of it. They are the ones that have all the answers. That they're going to do what they're going to do, or they're not going to do what they're not going to do. And we're all just the audience watching this big stage play. This 3-act play. And we're coming to the end of Act 1. So depending on what happens tonight, I will go over my plans for the next days, weeks, and months. Because all of it hinges on a decision in a rural county court. It all hinges on whether or not Phil McConnell is coming to Florida. Or if Phil McConnell does not come to the state of Florida, then things will change. The way I do things will change. My plans will change, naturally. But if Phil McConnell does come to Florida, things are in the works. Now, I realize at this stage of the recording that the answer will already be known about Phil McConnell, and I will have put it in an earlier portion of the tape, of the presentation. So that if things happen a certain way, then I'm basically speculating about something that's already happened. But there's a purpose to this too, is because this shows how we come to our speculations, how I come to mine anyway, is we weigh what could be, but we always plan for the worst. So that's what I did here, is while I anticipated that Phil McConnell would be coming to Florida and that he would face prosecution in the big game down here, I also had to hedge my bets in the event that Phil McConnell somehow gets himself out of this mess. That's what you have to do. For if you start dealing in absolutes, at some point you're going to fail. Doesn't matter how obvious the outcome should be. I learned that lesson with Casey Anthony. Casey Anthony, I was dead certain that girl was going to go to prison, and the only question about whether or not she was going to get the death penalty. I never considered the possibility that she would be acquitted. A lot of people did. Vast majority of people did. And we were dumbfounded when she got off. When she was acquitted. And she basically walked. No accountability at all. She's living comfortably right now, strangely enough, very close to where this trial is taking place for the Parkland shooter, and where Field McConnell would show up if he's extradited to Florida. Doing pretty good from what I understand. Who knows, while I'm down there running around in Fort Lauderdale, I might bump into her. Yeah, you just never know. Because Miami's not that far from Fort Lauderdale. The area where she's staying is pretty damn close to Fort Lauderdale. So it could be a twofer. But there's also the Parkland shooter case down there. I'm going to start looking into this a little more because this thing's starting to get intense and it doesn't look like it's going to be over anytime soon. So I'll be following that one. But this is why you always plan a worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario in our case is if Field McConnell were to get out of this little mess he's in. What's the next step? The next step is to cross our fingers and hope that all these parties that are trying to get out of this Cynthia Absuck situation, either Cynthia herself or those that may go down with a field tannic if the prosecutors start issuing arrest warrants. So there's going to be all this to work and to think about. Because nobody's out of the woods yet. The Field McConnell saga is only the first act in a 3-act play. Act 2 is going to be Cynthia Absuck. And Act 3 is going to be the Children's Crusade and Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. Because we have to go through the entire play to see how it ends. Let's see what the epilogue's going to be. Right now, we're just seeing the prologue in the first act. We're seeing the beginning of a long process, no matter what direction we go in. This is a tree with many branches. Branches are random, they're going all directions. Up, down, sideways, and in a circle. And there's probably going to be several years before the dust settles on all this. And there's going to be new players in this play. New scammers are going to pop up. All kinds of people in the woodwork ready to come out and become the targets of people that have been fed up with these fake scams, with people saying they are what they're not. The truther community's getting fed up because of all the frauds that are going on. That's where the big story is. That's where things are really going to start hitting the fan, because the truthers are getting mad. They've been getting fooled by the charlatans that barged in on their philosophy. Now, whether you agree or disagree with the truther community, that is their goal. They want the truth. They want to know what is actually going on. Are the things true that are being said? They want to expose the lies. And when they find out that there's lies coming from within, that they're being betrayed by the people they believe in, they're going to get mad. And they already are getting mad. One prominent person who's well known in the truther community, who might even be the leader of the truther community, is angry. He's so angry, he talked about getting off the internet. He's fed up because all these people that he believed in, that he thought were part of what he wanted to do, are turning out to be frauds. That these people aren't who they say they are. They're just out for money, for clicks on the internet, for, their own selfish purposes. They're not out for the truth. And he should have realized it. He should have known that if people are saying that they're part of a secret agency within the United States government, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and the Children's Crusade, and all these other groups that pop up, that they're all frauds. Every damn one of them are frauds. That they are taking advantage of people's sincere beliefs, no matter what those beliefs are, and they're exploiting them to suck money and fame up from people that have a genuine interest in their community at large and the causes they advocate. The biggest scammers are involved in veterans groups and in these various children advocacy groups, whether it be against pedophiles, satanic ritual abuse, human trafficking, or those who perceive that child protection services is a big scam that needs to be scrapped or otherwise dealt with. That these charlatans come in and they screw things up. They lie. And in the process, they try to enrich themselves with these lies. This is what the Cynthia Abzug case exposed. Is that there are charlatans out there that take advantage of people in desperate situations that have a true belief that they are being victimized by a corrupt system, and yet corrupt people are the ones they turn to for help. It's damaging to the truther community. It's damaging to all these other people out there that are true advocates for these various causes. This does harm. They get played for fools by people on the opposite side, people that believe that CPS is being lied about, and all the other beliefs these people have exposed are all lies. And then counter accusations are made. And then there's people on the other side that start the same thing. They start with these phony advocacies to take advantage of people on that side. So it's not just one side that gets attacked by these frauds. The attacks come from all over the place against all groups. And so it's up to the people involved legitimately in these various causes to expose these frauds. To say these people are not true believers. They're just scammers taking advantage of our cause. For money, for fame, for whatever their purposes are. We're caught in the middle in all this. That's what needs to be done here. Truthers out there, you need to work together to expose these frauds. If you're gonna support a group like the Children's Crusade or the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, you need to vet these people. Find out if what they're saying is the truth or not. And when they're not telling the truth, don't go along with them just because they support your cause. Because in the long run, it's going to harm it. You need to expose these people and turn them away. Turn them out. See, they don't support us, they're exploiting us. That's how you fight these groups. That's how you fight these charlatans, these scammers. The ones that wind up making fools out of you. You go after them, expose them, shut them down, report them to the authorities when they break the law. Because in the end, that's how you get them. You catch them breaking the law, and you turn them into the authorities. Because they're not helping your cause. Because if you get a charlatan like Phil McConnell that latches onto your cause, and so, for instance, fighting the children, the CPS, and the corruption that you claim is happening there, CPS can turn around. Look what these people are doing that are fighting us. They're actually going out and doing what they claim we're doing. They're fooling women into giving up their children, leaving the country, having them run around the country, giving out fake passports. We were right. These people are wrong. We're not wrong. They're wrong. They're the ones that are the frauds, the child traffickers. And so your cause gets blown up because this is a weapon for those that are accused to use this evidence to fight the accusations. They can come back and say that the people that are accusing us of these things are a bunch of nut jobs. People like all these people are like the Children's Crusade and the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. They're lying about who they are. This is what they're saying. So the things they're saying about us can't be true because look at who's telling these accusations. Look at who's making these accusations. Look at what they're doing to the mothers, so on and so forth. So it's like somebody, a bomb gets thrown into your truth cause. And this is happening all over, not only with Children's Crusade and so forth, but in the political arena. Because that's what the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force is. You got a guy sitting in a county jail who says he's a personal friend of the President of the United States, and he's the head of this secret agency that's working with the President of the United States to do all this stuff. And yet the President of the United States can't get this guy out of a county jail. Now, it should be obvious to everyone that this guy is a liar. And because you threw your support behind this guy, people who are against what you say, and perhaps people against Donald Trump, and that don't like Donald Trump, they can use Phil McConnell as a weapon. Say, look, this is the kind of people that support Donald Trump. Some nut that says he's part of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. People who support Donald Trump are people like Timothy Charles Homestead, an unemployed pizza delivery driver that says he's a spokesperson for a secret agency within the United States government. And people who support Trump are like this guy out in the Northwest and claims to be the Postmaster General of the world and has a patent and copyright on the United States flag. These are the kind of people that we have to deal with. And so it's these people that damage the advocacy that people might have in support of Trump and so on. They're the ones that are getting damaged just as much as anyone else. Because they're looked at as fools, as charlatans, as clowns. And so if you want to save any credibility on your cause, no matter who you support, no matter what your cause is, you better start cracking down on these fakes, these idiots, these charlatans, these scammers, or you're going to bury yourselves in the process. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Until later, have a good one.